Most people think they know what a cruise looks like: a giant ship, a buffet, 1,000 strangers fighting for a sun lounger. But there's another world of cruising, one that almost nobody talks about, where ships carry fewer than 500 guests, where your suite costs more than most people's cars, and where the word line simply doesn't exist. Tonight, we're going inside the most expensive, most exclusive, and most jaw-dropping cruise experience on the planet. From $50, zero suites and private helicopter rides to Michelin-level chefs and voyages to Antarctica, this is what luxury at sea actually looks like, and the answer might surprise you. Imagine waking up in a room bigger than most Manhattan apartments, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, a private terrace stretching out over the open ocean, and outside nothing. No other ships, no crowded pool decks, no one banging on the door to remind you checkout is at 11, just the horizon, the sea, and the kind of silence that money really can buy. Now imagine that room is moving, that it's carrying you, silently and effortlessly, from the coast of Monaco to the Greek islands, while a private butler presses your dinner jacket, a Michelin-trained chef prepares your lunch, and the only other people on board are 199 other guests who are, quietly, just as wealthy as you are. That's not a fantasy. That's a Tuesday on a luxury cruise. But here's what nobody tells you. A ticket on one of these ships 1 week can cost $50,000, sometimes more. And the list of what's waiting for you when you pay that price, it doesn't look anything like what you'd find on a brochure. So tonight, we're going in, all the way in, from the origin of these floating palaces, to who actually books them, to what $50,000 genuinely buys and whether any of it is actually worth it. Here's something most people don't realize. Cruising as an industry is massive. It generates over $50 billion a year globally. Tens of millions of Americans step onto a cruise ship every single year, and for most of them, it looks roughly the same: a giant vessel, 1,000 cabins stacked like apartment blocks, buffets open around the clock, a water slide, a casino, a shore excursion where you follow a tour guide holding an umbrella through a crowded market. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fun, it's affordable, it works, but somewhere, quietly, running alongside that mainstream cruise industry is a completely different world. One that barely advertises, one that doesn't chase volume, one that, in fact, deliberately limits the number of people allowed on board. Because the fewer passengers there are, the more exclusive and more expensive the experience becomes. This is the world of ultra-luxury cruising, and Americans, particularly wealthy, retired, or entrepreneurially successful Americans, are choosing it in record numbers. According to travel industry data, the ultra-luxury segment of cruising has grown faster than any other tier in the past decade, while mass-market cruise lines are building ships that hold 6,000 passengers. The luxury lines are going the opposite direction, building smaller, more intimate vessels designed to carry fewer people to more remote places with a level of personalized service that borders on the theatrical. And the question most people ask when they first hear about this world is simple: what exactly are you getting for $50,000 a week that you couldn't get somewhere else? That's exactly what we're here to find out. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain on the most exclusive floating resorts on Earth. We'll trace how cruise ships evolved from simple ocean liners into traveling palaces. We'll explore who actually books these voyages and why. We'll unpack the psychology of ultra wealth and what people with everything are still searching for, and we'll take a close, honest look at the controversial side of this world that the glossy brochures conveniently leave out. Buckle in. This is the world of luxury cruising, and nothing about it is ordinary. To understand how we got here, to $50,000 suites and private butler service in the middle of the Pacific, you have to go back to the beginning. And the beginning, honestly, had nothing to do with luxury. It had everything to do with survival. In the 19th century, ocean liners existed for one purpose: to move people across water. Immigrants crossing the Atlantic, mail, cargo. The ships were functional, efficient, and for most passengers, deeply uncomfortable. Third-class passengers slept in shared bunks below the waterline. They ate basic rations. The sea, for most of them, wasn't an experience. It was an obstacle between where they were and where they needed to be. But here's where it gets interesting. The same ships that packed thousands of immigrants into their hulls also carried, up in first class, an entirely different world: private cabins, dining rooms with white tablecloths, Smoking rooms paneled in dark wood, an early version of luxury at sea, was already taking shape, and the wealthy had already discovered that there was something uniquely powerful about traveling on water. Something that land-based travel couldn't replicate, that feeling of total isolation, of being untethered from the world, of existing, for a brief and magnificent stretch of time, completely between places. By the mid-20th century, commercial aviation had destroyed the ocean liner industry as a form of transport. But rather than disappear entirely, the cruise industry did something clever. It reinvented itself. If people could fly anywhere faster and cheaper, why would they choose a ship? The answer the industry landed on was both simple and genius, because the ship itself is the destination. Suddenly, ships weren't transport, they were resorts, floating hotels, destinations in their own right. For decades, this worked beautifully for the mass market. Companies like Carnival and Royal Caribbean built enormous ships, designed to carry thousands of guests, keep prices accessible, and make cruising feel like an all-you-can-eat, non-stop party at sea. And for a huge portion of Americans, that's exactly what they wanted. But not everyone. For a smaller, quieter, considerably wealthier segment of the traveling public, the direction of mass cruising had become a problem. Too many people, too much noise, too many photographers at dinner, and too many children running past the pool at midnight. The experience had become, for lack of a better word, crowded. And so beginning in the 1980s and accelerating through the 1990s, a new category of cruise line began to emerge. One that went in the opposite direction in almost every measurable way. Regent Seven Seas Cruises was among the first to establish what would become the gold standard for all-inclusive luxury at sea. Their ships carried fewer passengers, sometimes as few as 490 in suites only. No standard cabins, no interior rooms. Every single guest had a suite with a window or a veranda. Everything was included in the fare. Shore excursions, premium beverages, specialty dining, gratuities, all of it built into one price. The philosophy was radical for its time. Stop nickel and diming guests for every extra, and instead offer one transparent price for the best possible experience. Then came Silversea Cruises, an Italian-born brand that brought European elegance to the concept of ultra-luxury cruising. Silversea ships are intimate by design. Their flagship vessels carry between 100 and 600 guests depending on the ship, and the staff-to-guest ratio is deliberately 1-to-1 or higher. That means, at any given moment on a Silversea ship, there is approximately one member of staff for every single guest on board. The service isn't attentive, it's omnipresent. It anticipates needs before they're even expressed. Seabourn Cruise Line entered the conversation with an almost ostentatiously subtle brand of luxury, the kind that doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. Seabourn ships are sleek, yacht-inspired, and intimate. They pull into ports that larger ships can't access, smaller harbors, private beaches, remote islands that feel untouched precisely because the only way to reach them is on a vessel small enough to fit. Crystal Cruises, before its bankruptcy and relaunch, spent decades being voted the best luxury cruise line in the world by travel industry publications. Year after year, it established the template for what award-winning service at sea actually looked like, and its influence is visible throughout the industry even today. And then, most recently, came the arrival of a brand that seemed almost too obvious in hindsight, the Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection. Because if you're going to build an ultra-luxury cruise experience for the kind of traveler who already stays at Ritz-Carlton hotels on land, why not take everything they already love about the brand and put it on water? The Ritz-Carlton yachts are, by cruise ship standards, tiny. They carry around 148 guests. They are designed to look and feel less like a cruise ship and more like an extremely large private super yacht. And for guests who already associate the Ritz-Carlton name with a particular level of quiet, understated, flawlessly executed luxury, the yacht experience is an almost seamless extension of a world they already inhabit. What unites all of these brands? Regent, Silversea, Seabourn, Crystal, Ritz-Carlton is a single shared philosophy. They are not competing on size. They are not competing on the number of onboard water parks or the length of their zip lines. They are competing on exclusivity, intimacy, and the singular ability to make a paying guest feel as though the entire ship exists for them alone. And that, it turns out, is worth a great deal of money to a great many people. Alright, let's get specific, because here's where most coverage of luxury cruising gets vague. People say incredible suites and world-class dining and unparalleled service, and none of that actually tells you anything. So let's break it down. What, exactly, Does $50,000 a week on a luxury cruise actually get you? Let's start where every cruise experience starts: the room. The suites on a standard cruise ship. Your cabin, if you've booked a basic inside room, is roughly 160 square feet. That's about the size of a large walk-in closet. You have a bed, a tiny bathroom, a television bolted to the wall, and if you're lucky, a porthole. It is perfectly functional. It is not, by any stretch of the imagination, luxurious. On a Regent Seven Seas ship, the smallest suite starts at 300 square feet. And it only gets bigger from there, the top-tier suites. The ones that land you in the $50,000 per week category are a different world entirely. We're talking about two-story penthouses with sweeping ocean views from wraparound, terraces, living rooms with grand pianos, walk-in closets with dedicated lighting and full-length mirrors, marble bathrooms with deep soaking tubs positioned so you can watch the ocean while you soak. Separate his and hers vanities. A shower room that, by itself, might be larger than your standard cruise cabin. And then there is the butler, not a shared attendant, not someone who handles 50 other cabins on the same deck. Your own dedicated, personally assigned butler, someone who learns your name before you board, knows your preferences before you ask, and is available around the clock for whatever you need. Whether that's arranging a private shore tour, pressing your clothes for dinner, preparing a late-night snack on your terrace, or simply ensuring that your preferred brand of still water is always chilled and waiting in your suite. On a standard cruise, you get a cabin steward who cleans your room twice a day if you're lucky and leaves a fresh towel. Swan on your bed at night. Charming, yes. Personalized luxury, no. The contrast is almost comedic. One experience makes you feel like a valued hotel guest. The other makes you feel, genuinely, like you are the only person on the ship who matters, and that feeling, that particular, almost intoxicating sense of being the priority is, for many guests, the single most valuable thing they're paying for. The food. Now let's talk about eating, because on a standard cruise, food is abundant, relentlessly, overwhelmingly abundant. You will never go hungry. You will find yourself standing in front of a buffet at 11 in the morning wondering why you're reaching for a third dessert when you haven't even finished breakfast yet. The food is fine, sometimes better than fine, but it is food designed for scale, produced in enormous quantities for thousands of people, with thousands of different preferences, and optimized accordingly on a luxury cruise. The food is something else entirely. Regent Seven Seas partners with the Culinary Institute of America to train their chefs. Silversea has engaged Relais and Chateau, one of the most prestigious culinary guilds in the world, as a partner on some luxury ships. Individual restaurants are helmed by Michelin-starred chefs or their protégés. You are not eating cruise food, you are eating restaurant food. Serious restaurant food. The menus change daily. The ingredients are sourced with the same attention a top land-based restaurant would give them. Wagyu beef, line-caught fish, white truffles in season, champagne poached lobster, hand-selected caviar served tableside with proper accompaniments in the traditional Russian style. And there is no buffet chaos. There is no elbowing past someone for the last piece of smoked salmon. There is no tray, no plastic plate, no fluorescent lighting humming overhead. You are seated. You are greeted. You are offered a menu that reads like something you'd find in a restaurant you'd need to book 3 months in advance. Dining times are flexible if you prefer dinner at 10 rather than 6. That is entirely possible. If you want to eat on your terrace, your butler will arrange it. If you'd like a private dinner for two on an upper deck under the stars, that can be organized. The galley exists to serve you, not the other way around. There's a line that floats around in luxury travel circles that perfectly captures the difference. On regular cruises, you line up for the shrimp. Here the shrimp lines up for you. It sounds like a joke. On a $50,000 cruise, it is simply a Tuesday. The destinations and experiences. Here is where luxury cruising separates itself most dramatically from its mass market counterpart, and where the $50,000 price tag starts to make a particular kind of sense. Mass market cruise itineraries are designed around accessibility. The ports have to be big enough to dock an enormous ship. The excursions have to be manageable at scale, meaning you and 300 other passengers will be shepherded onto a bus together and driven past a landmark, given 45 minutes to look at it, and return to the ship in time for the 5 o'clock sail away. It's efficient. It's fine. It is not, however, an adventure. Luxury cruise itineraries operate on an entirely different logic. Because the ships are smaller, they can dock where larger vessels cannot. A Ritz-Carlton yacht or a Seabourn vessel can pull directly into a harbor village, in the Greek islands. That exists on no other cruise ship's itinerary because it's simply too small for anything larger. To enter, you wake up, step off the gangway, and walk directly into a whitewashed village that feels like it belongs to you alone. Because in that moment, practically speaking, it does. The excursions on luxury cruises are not buses, they are private experiences, either included in the fare or bookable as exclusive arrangements. A private sailing yacht hired for the day to explore hidden sea caves along the Croatian coast. A helicopter transfers from the ship to a glacier in Alaska. For a private champagne breakfast on the ice, a closed restaurant dinner in a centuries-old wine cellar in Bordeaux, arranged exclusively for the passengers of this one ship. Some luxury itineraries go where mass-market cruises simply cannot follow: Antarctica, the Norwegian fjords in deep winter, the remote islands of French Polynesia, the Amazon, the Galapagos. These are not destinations you reach by accident or convenience. They are destinations that require small ships, careful logistics, and the particular kind of guest who isn't just looking for a vacation, but for a genuine encounter with the world's most extraordinary places. Picture this. You are standing on the observation deck of a ship in Antarctic waters. It is just after midnight, but the sky is still pale. The white summer light of 65 degrees south latitude. The water is glass smooth. 100 meters off the port side, a humpback whale surfaces, exhales in a great white plume, and slides back beneath the surface. The only sound is the ship's engines, distant and low. There are fewer than 500 people on Earth in this same moment who are witnessing what you are witnessing. That is what $50,000 can buy, not just comfort, not just food in a nice room, an experience that is, by design, available to almost no one else. Here's something interesting. Ask the guests on a luxury cruise what they're paying for, and very few of them will tell you it's the caviar. Very few will say it's the marble bathroom or the king-size bed or even the personal butler. Those things are wonderful, but they're not the point. The point, for most people who book these voyages, is something far simpler and far more valuable: the absence of friction. At a certain level of wealth and success, and particularly at the stage of life when most luxury cruise guests find themselves, the scarce resource is no longer money, it's time, and more specifically, it's the experience of time without interruption. Time that isn't segmented into meetings and decisions and obligations. Time that belongs entirely to you on a mass market cruise. Time still has the quality of a crowded city. You're navigating around other people, waiting in lines, making decisions about where to eat and when and how to get a chair by the pool before all the good ones are taken. The logistics of pleasure become, in a subtle way, a source of stress. On a luxury cruise, that friction is almost entirely removed. Every interaction has been pre-lubricated, as it were, by an army of staff who anticipate your needs before you feel them. The chair by the pool is waiting because someone noticed you tend to sit there. Your favorite drink arrives because it was noted on your preference sheet before you boarded. You don't make reservations. You don't queue. You don't negotiate for upgrades or argue about towels or wonder whether the Wi-Fi is free. It simply works. Everything, quietly and seamlessly, works. For wealthy Americans especially, there is also the profound appeal of privacy. Privacy, at a certain level of success, becomes precious in ways that are difficult to explain to people who have never lacked it. On a regular ship, you are surrounded by thousands of strangers. You might be recognized. You might be approached. You are, in the most literal sense, a private individual in a very public space. On a luxury cruise with 200 guests, the culture shifts entirely. Everyone on board exists within a mutual understanding of discretion. You are among peers, broadly speaking. There are no fans. There are no awkward elevator conversations. There are no smartphone cameras swiveling toward you across the pool deck. There is simply the rare, remarkable luxury of being entirely anonymous and entirely comfortable at exactly the same time. Time, privacy, and the removal of friction. These are what luxury cruise lines are actually selling. The suites and the caviar and the private excursions are the delivery mechanism. But the product itself is something that cannot be listed in a brochure. It is the experience of moving through the world for 1 week, exactly as you choose, with zero obstacles between your desire and its fulfillment, for the right person at the right moment. That is worth any price. So who are these people? Who is actually handing over $50,000? Sometimes far more for a week at sea. The demographic breakdown might surprise you. The popular imagination tends to picture old money, inherited wealth, dynasty-level families. who've never known a day's financial anxiety in their lives. And yes, some of that is there, but the reality is more interesting. The fastest growing segment of luxury cruise passengers in the United States right now is retired executives and entrepreneurs, men and women who spent 30 or 40 years building something, who have the wealth to reflect it, and who have finally reached a point in their lives where they feel both entitled and eager to spend it on experiences rather than things. These are not people who are comfortable with the idea of waiting in line, not because they're arrogant, but because, for the past 4 decades, their time has been their most valuable professional asset. The reflex to protect it doesn't vanish when they retire, it just redirects. You'll also find on many luxury sailings a quieter category of wealthy guests, the genuinely private wealthy, people who have money in significant quantities but live in deliberate obscurity, successful real estate developers, private equity partners, founders of mid-sized businesses who sold and walked away comfortably. They don't want to be seen being rich, they just want to be comfortable. And the self-contained world of a luxury cruise ship, surrounded by other guests with similar financial realities, offers a rare social comfort that's surprisingly hard to find elsewhere. There is also, and this demographic is growing, the younger luxury traveler, not 25 years old, typically, but 40 to 55, entrepreneurs who build technology companies or financial services firms, people who are accustomed to flying private and staying in presidential suites, but are discovering, sometimes for the first time, that a luxury cruise offers something hotels and private jets cannot: genuine extended immersion in a place, the slow luxury of days at sea. What unites all of them, across every demographic, is a particular relationship with money, not one of accumulation. That chapter is largely behind them, but one of translation. They are translating wealth into experience, into memory, into the quiet satisfaction of having seen something extraordinary in conditions of total comfort. And that translation, it turns out, is something they're willing to pay for very generously. Here's the business reality that makes luxury cruising genuinely fascinating. From a commercial standpoint, these lines are not trying to maximize the number of passengers. They are trying to maximize the revenue per passenger, and those are two completely different strategic objectives that lead to completely different business models. A mass-market cruise ship carrying 6,000 passengers at an average fare of $1,200 per person per week generates roughly $7.2 million in ticket revenue per sailing. But then, and this is the key part, it generates an enormous additional revenue stream on board. Drink packages, specialty dining upcharges, spa treatments, shore excursion fees, casino wins, photo packages, Wi-Fi charges, shopping. Every single one of those line items represents a passenger being nickel and dime gently, cheerfully, but consistently throughout the voyage. The luxury model looks almost nothing like this. Regent Seven Seas, for example, advertises itself as the most inclusive luxury cruise line in the world. Their fares include, from the moment of booking, round-trip business class airfare, luxury hotel stay before embarkation, unlimited shore excursions, all specialty dining, all beverages including premium spirits and wines, gratuities, transfers, and Wi-Fi, everything. One price, no surprises. This accomplishes something psychologically brilliant. It removes the anxiety of expenditure from the vacation itself. On a mass-market cruise, every decision, should I get the drink package? Is the specialty restaurant worth it? Should I book the helicopter excursion? Carries a price tag. The cognitive overhead of those decisions never fully disappears. You are always, somewhere in the back of your mind, calculating. On an all-inclusive luxury cruise, that calculation stops at the point of booking. You paid. It is done. Everything from here forward is simply enjoyment. That psychological liberation is, for many guests, an intrinsic part of the value proposition. The limited passenger model adds another layer. Because there are fewer guests, the ship can offer a higher staff ratio, better ingredient quality in the kitchen, more personalized service, and access to smaller, more exclusive ports. The operational cost per passenger is higher, but so is the price paid, and the brand perception of exclusivity actually increases the willingness to pay rather than diminishing it. Exclusivity in the luxury market is not a constraint, it is the product. The Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection is perhaps the most sophisticated expression of this strategy. By attaching one of the most trusted luxury hotel brands in the world to a floating product, they immediately inherit decades of consumer trust, brand equity, and a pre-existing database of extremely high net worth guests who already associate the name Ritz-Carlton with a specific promise of quality. The The brand does a portion of the selling before a single promotional email is sent. In an industry where the mass market competes ferociously on price, the luxury segment has found a way to compete on something price simply cannot replicate. The feeling that you are somewhere special with people who were chosen to be there in conditions that exist nowhere else on Earth. That feeling, it turns out, has a very healthy profit margin. Let's be honest about something, because any serious examination of ultra-luxury cruising has to reckon with the criticism. And there is real, substantive criticism to be had. The environmental argument is the most significant and the hardest to dismiss. A cruise ship, even a small luxury vessel, is not a clean form of transportation. Heavy fuel oil, even in its cleaner modern variants, produces significant carbon emissions. The ocean environments these ships travel through are, in many cases, among the most ecologically sensitive on the planet: Antarctica, the Galapagos. The Norwegian fjords are not places that naturally accommodate tourism of any kind. And even small ships, operating at scale over many years, leave a footprint. The luxury lines are aware of this. Most of them have invested substantially in cleaner fuel technologies, waste management systems, and partnerships with conservation organizations. Silversea, for example, has worked with scientific institutions to fund polar research during Antarctic voyages. Regent and Seabourn have made significant commitments to shore power connectivity and reduce single-use plastics. These are genuine efforts, not merely marketing. But critics, incredible ones, argue that calling a $50,000 cruise sustainable because it burns slightly cleaner fuel is a form of greenwashing. That the fundamental act of sailing a vessel powered by fossil fuels into one of the world's last pristine wilderness areas for the entertainment of the wealthy is, regardless of the carbon offsets purchased, a particular kind of ecological arrogance. There is also the broader social critique. In a world of growing inequality, the existence of a product designed specifically to insulate the ultra-wealthy from the discomfort of existing near anyone else carries a kind of symbolism that reasonable people can find troubling. The explicit selling point of a luxury cruise: fewer people, fewer crowds. Privacy from the masses is viewed through a certain lens, the monetization of social exclusion. These are legitimate conversations. They don't necessarily invalidate the product, but they deserve space in any honest account of what luxury cruising is and what it represents. The industry knows this, and the more thoughtful voices within it are actively grappling with how to reconcile extraordinary privilege with genuine environmental responsibility. Whether they are grappling fast enough is, perhaps, the more pressing question. So where does this all go next? Because the industry is not standing still, and the direction it's moving is genuinely remarkable. The first and most significant trend is the move toward even smaller, more yacht-like vessels. The luxury cruise market is discovering that there is a segment of ultra-high-net-worth travelers for whom even the 100 passengers is too many. These are people who charter private yachts for weeks at a time, who travel in groups of 10 or 20, and who want the amenities of a large luxury ship: the spa, the gourmet kitchen, the expedition equipment, but in an almost entirely private context. Several new lines are building vessels of between 50 and 100 guests specifically to serve this market. It is, effectively, a private yacht charter that happens to have a Michelin-level restaurant on board. The blurring of the line between superyacht and cruise ship is accelerating. The second trend is AI-powered personalization, and this one is fascinating. Luxury hospitality has always relied on the human memory of a skilled butler or maitre d' to track preferences, anticipate needs, and create the impression that the guest is truly known. The challenge is that human memory has limits, and staff turnover means institutional knowledge walks out the door. AI systems being developed for the luxury cruise sector are designed to build a comprehensive, evolving profile of each guest's preferences, habits, health considerations, favorite wines, preferred cabin temperatures, dietary patterns, and surface that information seamlessly across every interaction point on the ship. The butler who greets you on day one has access to everything you preferred on your last 3 voyages. The restaurant knows your allergy before you mention it. The spa is your preferred treatment protocol ready without a consultation. It is, admittedly, slightly unsettling from a privacy standpoint, but for guests who are paying $50,000 for a seamless experience, the trade-off is one most of them will make without hesitation. The third and most audacious development on the horizon is the expansion of ultra-luxury cruising into space-adjacent territory. Not literally, not yet, but the aesthetic, technological, An experiential language of space travel is increasingly informing how the most ambitious luxury cruise lines are designing their products. Large curved observation windows, destinations accessible only by purpose-built expedition vessels, the framing of every voyage as an expedition rather than a vacation, the invitation, implicit in every piece of marketing, to experience a version of Earth that most humans will never see. One line has already announced a voyage that will circumnavigate the globe with no repeated port, traveling to 32 countries across 6 months. At a price point of well over $100,000 per suite, it sold out quickly. The future of luxury cruising is not a bigger ship. It is a more intimate one, traveling to more remote places, delivering an experience so specifically tailored to the individual guest that it cannot be replicated anywhere else, at any price, in any other format. That is the direction this industry is heading, and by almost any measure, it is moving fast. There's a question underneath all of this that's worth sitting with for a moment. Not the economic question, not the environmental one, but the human one. What are people actually looking for when they spend this much money on a week at sea? Some of it, clearly, is comfort. The deep, full-bodied comfort of being in a beautiful place, eating extraordinary food, with every friction and inconvenience removed from your life for 7 days. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing shallow about it. Human beings who have worked hard for decades are entitled to rest, and to rest well. But some of it, when you talk to people who've done these voyages, when you hear them describe waking up at 6 in the morning to watch the ship sail through a Norwegian fjord as the sun rose behind snow-capped mountains, or standing at the bow at midnight in Antarctic waters where no other ship was visible in any direction, something else is clearly happening. Something that goes beyond comfort, beyond cuisine, beyond the thread count of the sheets. They are having the experience of existing, fully and undistracted, in one of the world's most beautiful places, and in a life filled with screens and schedules and the relentless forward motion of ambition and responsibility. That experience, the simple experience of being entirely present somewhere extraordinary, turns out to be rare enough to feel like a luxury in itself. Maybe that's the real insight buried inside the $50,000 price tag. Not that the experience is worth $50,000, but that the permission to be present truly, unhurriedly, completely present, in a place of extraordinary beauty is something most of us almost never give ourselves, and the people who do give it to themselves, at whatever cost, often come back describing something that sounds less like a vacation and more like a revelation. Maybe true luxury isn't the gold-plated railings or the private butler or the Wagyu beef. Maybe it's arriving somewhere genuinely beautiful and having the rare, uncomplicated freedom to simply look. So I want to know, and I mean this genuinely, would you? If someone handed you a week on one of these ships with a $50,000 suite and private excursions and a Michelin chef cooking for you every night, would that be your dream? Or does the very idea of it feel like too much? Tell me in the comments. I want to see where you land on this, because I think the answer says something interesting about each of us, about how we relate to luxury, to comfort, to the idea of spending that much on an experience that will last 7 days and leave almost no physical trace. Drop your honest answer below. There's no wrong answer. Seriously, if you found this documentary worth your time, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who love this kind of content. And subscribe, because next week, we're going inside the world's most expensive private island resorts, places where the nightly rate rivals a Manhattan penthouse and where the waitlist to book is measured not in weeks but in years. You're not going to want to miss that one. Safe travels, and we'll see you next time.